Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your Monday, May 3rd, 2021, here in the beautiful city of Chicago, or wherever you are listening or watching to this podcast. We hope you each had a safe and wonderful weekend. And on today's edition of Sports from the Couch, I want to talk about the draft fallout. What else are you going to talk about? Justin Fields is the quarterback for your Chicago Bears. And if you're not a Bears fan, you might be interested to see what the third largest market, one of the tent poles of the NFL franchise, a marquee franchise, what the buzz is around the city. But before we get to all that, let's make sure we take care of some housekeeping notes. Follow us all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at Mike and Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and you can follow the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. You can also follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. While you're at it, you can like, rate, review, and share us wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. And if you would like to support the network, visit us at Teespring and at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. If you would like to see the video version of the podcast, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network, and like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. With that, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Justin Fields is the quarterback of your Chicago Bears, and not just that, the Bears had themselves a hell of a draft. Go figure. The Bears went on and messed around and did some good. And if you are new to the network or you missed the brand new show that I'm doing with Everett O'Neill, it is a wonderful passion project that we've been working on that finally got off the ground. We talked about this. Who would have thunk it, right? The Bears would be the envy of the town in the NFL. But it's not just Justin Fields. They went out and they got themselves another pick. They traded up and got Tevin Jenkins, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma State. They also got themselves Larry Borom from Missouri. And we also got Khalil Herbert. They got Daz Newsome, who looks really good from North Carolina. So you got a running back and a wide receiver to help that offense, help Justin Fields as the years go on top of his protection. They also got themselves a cornerback at Thomas Graham Jr. in the 6th round as well. And in the 7th round, they got Kyrus Tonga. And we know it's Tonga, but the defensive tackle from BYU. So in the 1st round, you get your quarterback. In the 2nd round, you get your starting offensive tackle, probably on the left side, now that Charles Leno Jr. has been let go through to cap space. We'll talk about that in just a second. And in the 5th round, you get another nice offensive tackle, more of a project, but still somebody who's probably going to plug and play at some point. And then in the 6th round, you get a running back, a wide receiver, and a cornerback. And to finish off the draft, a defensive tackle, just more bodies on a team that needs them. And what I found fascinating about this draft is, we're going to be transparent here. You know that we're honest with each other and about what we're feeling and how we're feeling. I've been anti Ryan Pace for a long time. And I've turned my tide, at least, on how I feel about Matt Nagy. I started lumping them two together, very much so. But whether it's Matt Nagy took control of this draft or Ryan Pace collaborated with these guys, I have to give credit where credit's due. And it's not just me that believes that, and it's not just somebody in Chicago. Don't let the apparel fool you. I am as critical as it gets when it comes to my favorite franchise, a charter franchise in the NFL. But we got to be honest with ourselves. And this was a really cool tweet that I saw. This comes from Renee Budgner. Follow them at RNBWCV just to give them credit, because this was an awesome conglomeration that they put. Collaboration, I should say. It is the NFL draft grades, okay? And it's from all these different websites. So, for example, NFL.com, NBC Sports Boston, PFN, Sporting News, Cleveland.com, The Ringer, TD Wire, so on and so forth. And they gathered all their grades. And would you go ahead and take a look? Who was number one when they averaged them all out, when they got them all together and they did this poll? The Chicago Bears. And we'll go through some of these websites and how reputable they are. NFL.com graded the Bears at an A. The Draft Network, A+. NBC Sports Boston, A. PFN, A+. Sporting News, A. Cleveland.com, A-. The Ringer, A+. TD Wire, A. PFF, A+. USA Today, A. ESPN was a B+. The New York Post was a B+. Sports Illustrated, an A-. The Score, an A. Fansided, A+, Washington Post an A, The Draft Wire A, and NBC Sports Edge A+, with a GPA average of 3.99. That is unreal. This is just a draft. And we know all this could be a bust. This could be all for naught. But right now, we get the benefit of enjoying it because hope springs eternal, right? Every team in the NFL is excited because there is no for sure thing both ways. Yeah, they may not be superstars, Hall of Famers, but there's also not a for sure that they're busts. So you get to enjoy this. And especially here in Chicago when this Aaron Rodgers news is going on, now things get a little more serious. If Rodgers is out of this division, the tides turn. Whether or not that means the fruitions, it comes to pass, that's different. But it's all about optimism and guessing and using every bit of information you can to make the best educational guess you have. And with that, if you're curious, and of course, go to @RNBWCV to check this out on Twitter. This was from Renee Bugner, who posted this on the Twitter. So the Chicago Bears were one with all these different gradings. And for example, like we said, ESPN was a B+. That was from Mel Kiper Jr. So this is a really nice tool to kind of just see the vibes of people. 2 was the Cleveland Browns with a 3.89 GPA. The LA Chargers at 3, the Jets at 4, the Dolphins at 5, and the Patriots at 6, the Ravens at 7, the Lions at 8, the Jaguars at 9, and to round it off, the New York Giants at 10. And this is a great source. Again, I suggest you guys check it. If you're interested, the teams that ranked the lowest were the Houston Texans, the Seattle Seahawks, the LA Rams, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the New Orleans Saints. Houston being from the bottom, going up to the top. They scored a 1.88 GPA. So yeah, you fans should be excited. You should be excited. There is optimism, and it's not forced. You know, I said this on the show a few days ago where when you saw Mitchell Trubisky get drafted, we all know while some mock drafts did have Mitch at 1, most of us had Deshaun Watson 1. Now, I may be wrong about that as to long term, whether it's his own doing, not being able to get on the field, and because Patrick Mahomes is just a bad dude, just that bad of a dude. Okay. But Deshaun was 1. Mahomes was 2, and Mitch was 3 on most people's mock drafts, including Matt Nagy's. They had to sell you on him being your starting quarterback. Ryan Pace had to bend over backwards to tell you this was the right pick. Now, there's room for criticism for this front office in general. Now, being positive, yeah, they did a great job in this draft on paper. And until a ball is snapped, you get to enjoy it. But this is the same front office that brought in Mike Lennon when they were going to draft Mitch. That brought in Nick Foles, gave up draft capital and money. Brought in Andy Dalton, overpaid for him, mind you. And then you draft Justin Fields while still having Nick Foles on your roster. And now you're having to cut people, not just to, have cap space, but to pay the draft class that we're all excited about. So they put themselves in bad positions, and there's plenty to critique about this team. But they've done, at the very least, put themselves in a position to make things right. And I am putting more trust in Matt Nagy than I've done before. Because it seems to a lot of people on the inside that this is his draft. He's got a lot of pull into this one. And we know comparing that he had Patrick Mahomes number 1 on his draft board. We know now that Ryan Pace didn't. So, okay, all that is great. What about on the field, though, right? It comes down to what is Matt Nagy going to do to help develop and then implement Justin Fields into this team? See, for me, I understand you could convince me on both sides of this argument because, logical minds can come to an agreement. You can explain to me how a young quarterback should learn and gain experience on the bench. But I also understand that in this NFL, it is so important to try to get a young quarterback to hit early, and to take advantage of it. And you're in a point now where I think if you're the Chicago Bears, What you do is you keep expectations low. You say Andy Dalton is our quarterback. Because here's the fact, and my new co-host on one of the new shows that we're bringing up, Everett O'Neill, brought up, Andy Dalton isn't going to lose you many games. He might not win you many games, but he's not going to lose you a game, right? More often than not. So you're never going to be horrible. So if you're in a position where you have to play him, or you're selling the fan base and saying, yeah, we're going to let the kid rest, and we're going to let him learn, and we're going to let Andy Dalton, be the starter. Yeah, that's an easy convince. People are still going to be mad. People are still going to be hyped during the preseason. They're going to be complaining and calling into it and tweeting everybody. But you stay the course, right? What you do is you knowingly go into this saying, yeah, Andy Dalton's the starter. But if Justin Fields blows our minds, or if we think that he's going to pick it up pretty fast, we just don't want it all being about him all summer, it kind of plays out that way. Be undeniable. And if you trust this draft pick, if you trust that this coach fell in love with him, and you trust that what you're feeling of them having their job security on the line, then at some point the better talent's going to play. And here's the thing too, the roster themselves will tell you that. You've seen how hype a lot of these players are when they saw that Justin was drafted, but you got to go through the motions. So I think long term, Justin Fields is going to play more games than Andy Dalton this coming up season. Whether he starts the season is totally different. I would like to be, as of right now, optimistic and hope that he is just going to be so damn good, so much better. It's going to be such a truth to the coaches, to the players that, yeah, Andy Dalton's nice. And if you're lucky enough for him to be your backup, then you're golden. Because that means Justin Fields is so much better than a guy that we've seen start in the NFL. At his age, that means he's smarter than some experts thought. That means he's tougher than some experts thought. And if you can get that, you're off to the races. We're eating at Sizzlers. It's going down. And then if you invest around him, and if you scout it correctly, and all, again, as critical as I can be for Nagy and Pace, they have done a great job, or at least a very respectable job of scouting later in the draft. They've had no choice because they've given a lot of early draft picks up, right? But you got the guys to surround your young quarterback. You're bringing in young players. Maybe you sign Allen Robinson to be that veteran establishment for your roster on the offensive side. This is a team, while they had a 6-game losing streak, we're still in the playoffs. While it's an expanded playoffs, that's the league you're playing in now with an extended schedule. So if you could just put a thing here and there together, this isn't a team that was 2-14. You know what I'm saying? This wasn't a team that was 5-11, 6-10. This was a team that was 8-8 and got into the playoffs. Sucked it up, embarrassing themselves on Nickelodeon. But all things go right. You get lucky here and there. Justin Fields goes, I guess, with the 17 games. You find a way to get above 500. You let maybe Andy Dalton play the first few weeks. Or hell, let's hope that Justin Fields is as good as we think he is. Then he's starting from week 1. It just becomes one of the things where talent, I think, will rise above everything. And if all these things go right, you have a chance to compete. And the way we're speaking now, that is what difference makes. When even if it doesn't work out, the optimism that you get is so important for not just a fan base, but for your team. You can't tell me, whether it's just a little or a whole lot, that this doesn't affect the team, the players, the staff, everybody. Think about how this organization felt on Wednesday. Think about how it felt on Friday. Now think about how it feels on this Monday. And there are a lot of teams like that in the NFL. The New York Jets, new coaching staff, new quarterback, bringing in some players. You're looking at the New York Giants make a big trade with the Bears, getting their running back back. There's the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's a lot going on in the NFL. There's this new tide going on. And then you got this craziness of Aaron Rodgers. So it's very weird for us in Chicago to be in this position right now, to speak about it. And that's why I am so fascinated from step to step how this goes when the rookies get together, when we get to training camp, and eventually we get into preseason. But I thought this was such a fun draft in itself. And I am so glad that we are able to have this type of conversation about the Chicago Bears. Look, it can't always be the New England Patriots and the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys when you're in your prime, dynasty era. But it is so sad that the Chicago Bears have been in this position where a kid who's being drafted, who's unproven, who has had a wonderful career up to this point in his levels, but hasn't proven anything in the NFL, is such a lightning rod in a positive way for this charter franchise because they've been so inept at the position. But that's what the NFL draft, that is what this new NFL can do. In a blink of an eye, you can change the fortunes of your entire franchise. Again, look at the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears on Wednesday. Now look at them this Monday as we're recording this. It's crazy. And again, the fact that we're able to talk about this and not absolutely rail on Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, and in fact have a little bit more confidence in Matt Nagy than I've had in a long time, and not ready to, pack the bags for Ryan Pace and send him to O'Hare. There's good stuff here in Chicago. And there's good stuff all over the NFL. And I'll say it 1,000 times, and a lot of people get upset, but it's the truth in most sports. Your franchises, your organization, your league is just better when teams like the Bears are good. I'm not saying they have to win every championship. The NBA is better when the Chicago Bulls are good. And this might be some biasness because of where I live, but the Raiders are the same way. The Cowboys are the same way. There is just something, whether they're the evil empire or they're a beloved figure because of notoriety and people migrating from the city of Chicago to different places or vice versa. So for the Bears not to be an embarrassment, for the Bears to have been in the position of the draft where we all expected for them to fall flat on their face and to end up being the ball of the dance, got to give them kudos for it. And I got to give each and every one of you kudos for being on this journey with us here on Sports from the Couch and on Mercado Airwaves. We've been doing so wonderful on all the metrics because you have all been so supportive. And, I think a lot of it too is people are excited. The world is getting back to quote-unquote normal, but we're able to see each other. People are getting vaccinated. The places are opening. People are able to see their favorite sports team, movies, concerts. We're getting back, baby. And the Bears are back. I want to know your thoughts, though. Let me know, how did your team do in the NFL draft? What are your thoughts on the Chicago Bears getting two monsters on the offensive line, some absolute burners at running back and wide receiver, and, of course, potentially getting their new franchise quarterback in Justin Fields? Do you think Justin Fields starts the season, plays in the seasons, sits out his entire rookie year? Is it a waste if you use up an entire year that is so valuable in today's NFL? I want to know all your thoughts on Twitter at Mike and Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and you can follow the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. But with that, thank you all so much for joining us here on Sports from the Couch, here on Mercado Airwaves. Please enjoy all the games. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.